Hi, welcome to Botbrack, Box on the Box Rotten Celluloid. I'm Edward Box, and today I'm going to be looking at one of my favourite filmmakers doing a top 10, and it's Ridley Scott. So, Ridley Scott was born 1937. Like a lot of kids growing up during the war era, after the war, he passed his 11 plus, went to grammar school. Then he went to technical college at Hartlepool. He was actually born in South Shields, only about 10 miles away from where I'm talking from. And then eventually got into the Royal College of Art. Classic sort of story, really. Like a lot of the generation from this period. Obviously, the musicians I'm going to talk about who were kind of born in the early 40s or later 40s. You get guys like Bowie, and particularly Brian Ferry, Roxy Music. John Lennon went to art college. Pete Townsend. It's like a galvanising effect. It allows the fledgling artist to explore their creativity and work out what they want to do. And Scott quickly became interested in filmmaking, and he made his classic short called Boy on a Bicycle with his younger brother Tony, great Tony Scott, the late great Tony Scott, on his bike. Then he went into, eventually got into advertising. Some of his most famous adverts are British Airways one, but his all-time classic being the Hovis advert. So eventually, at the age of about 39, 40, he finds his way into film. Basically, there's a series of British filmmakers, Alan Parker being the trailblazer, who come from advertising and start to make their mark on film. So Alan Parker, 1976 is his debut. You've got Hugh Hudson, who did Chariots of Fire, Adrian Lyne, Fatal Attraction, and Scott, and his brother Tony Scott later on. But Ridley Scott is the one who would see them all off. He's still making films. Very prolific filmmaker. He's a guy who just churns out films every year, basically. I think he's because of the pandemic, he's got a few coming up. By the time this video comes out, they probably might already be released. But okay, so let's just talk about like some ones that didn't make the cut. It's funny when Scott, he can, when he blows hot, he blows incredibly hot to like classic all-time hot. When he blows sort of medium, his films always look good, but they can sometimes be not of much interest, but they're well made. And sometimes he blows cold, it's just not working, but he keeps going. Yeah, some ones didn't make the cut. I mean, Kingdom of Heaven, good epic. Apparently the director's cut's better. So kind of a missed opportunity with that, but I think if saw a director's cut that might be better. American Gangster, him doing the gangster cop film, a really kind of slick job, good acting, some good touches in this, just kind of missing that sort of extra thing that would take it over the top, as it were. Body of Lies, again, using very big stars, Leonardo DiCaprio. Misfire Robin Hood, just Russell Crowe. Yeah, never, after Gladiator, never quite really worked, and he's done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 films in total with Crowe. So it was an interesting potential dynamic there, but after Gladiator, didn't quite hit. Exorcist, Gods and Kings, very religious, biblical, apparently he's quite a religious guy. Alien Covenant, just taken on its own terms, quite enjoyable, but and we'll come to that. Then sort of stuff people don't forget. Remember White Squad, G.I. Jane, kind of looks more like his brother's films. I mean, one film which did make the cut, and it's because it's a woman's picture, and I'm not against women's pictures, but it's just never connected with me. But my wife loves it, for instance, Thelma and Louise. So this actually got him his first Oscar nomination, and it's a really good film, a proper feminist tract. And it's pretty amazing. It shows his skill with actors, actresses. His great performance from Harvey Keitel, breakout performance from Brad Pitt in that, and obviously the two leads, Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon, got Oscar nominations. I think it shows his diversity and variety. Conquest of Paris with the Turkey, Legend, although a lot of the imagery is great. It's a big career, and like I say, there's another 2 films coming up. All the Money in the World was his most recent one. I watched that. Which is kind of interesting for the replacement of Kevin Spacey, showing, I think, Scott's ability to make decisions, cast, his technical skill, and getting the job done. The reshot Christopher Plummer's parts, the Spacey parts, in 9 days. This film I would mark as quite interesting, but I wasn't totally gripped. But he's one of those filmmakers, he's now so slick and efficient at this, he's almost not going to make a bad film. It's just some are going to be better than others. Okay, so let's break into the top 10. So my number 10 choice is a film, I must confess I've not seen it for a while. I think it suffers from some bad cheese and sort of racism a bit. It's not sophisticated in a way the kind of Yakuza is more. But Black Rain's a good cop thriller, good star player from Michael Douglas. An expensive film in its day, 30 million, which was expensive at the time, but grossed 134 million at the box office. We're at peak Douglas here, and Andy Garcia very effective as his sidekick. Andy Garcia making that push for stardom, and never quite happened. And then you got Ken Takura, or somebody's called Tanaka Ken in the Japanese films he's done, I believe. It's a bit cheesy, you know, it's got some cheesy 80s-ness, but it's that point where, you know, Tokyo is, you know, you can still go out of these countries and photograph them, and they still look really exciting, probably less so now because the world's opened up more. Jan de Bont does the cinematography on this, obviously became a filmmaker himself. So yeah, the sort of critical rating on this is kind of 6, 7 out of 10. It's worth catching. It's not the best film, but it's kind of what's the word? It's kind of exciting and it's good fun. Okay, so my number 9 choice. People might be surprised by this, but I just think this was a brave attempt. It was an attempt to kind of do something a bit more ambiguous, using famous writer on the script. I can't remember if it was from a novel, but I think he just scripted it. I think it's Cormac McCarthy, and it's The Counselor. Really grim, this film. Yeah, it was written by Cormac McCarthy. Really good photography. Darius Wolski, who's worked with before, Petra Scalia. I think he did the editing for JFK. Scott often uses him. But yeah, the budget was 25 million, so it was like a low budget, not even medium budget. This so it grossed 71 million worldwide, so it didn't lose money. It didn't get great reviews, but it's unremittingly grim, and it has one of the most horrible deaths of a character at the end of the film, where it uses a kind of what's a kind of Mexican garrote device. So it's about the Mexican drug cartels. The cast's good. Fassbender, Cruz, Cameron Diaz in a kind of interesting role. Javier Bardem, Brad Pitt. Yeah, it's flawed, but it's just kind of more interesting than, say, Exodus, Gods and Kings, or, you know, one of the other films I mentioned before. I think it's well worth checking out. So that's my number 9 choice. My number 8 choice, again, this one, when it came out, it is flawed. There is numerous problems with it, and I seriously question whether it should have been done, because it's that thing we can't resist now, is the prequel, and then it starts to explain mythology and undoes some of the mystery of the film that came after it in the cycle but was made before. And of course I'm talking about Prometheus, but it looks amazing. You know, the tech credits on this, it's got superb effects, again, Darius Wolski, Petra Scalia, really interesting musical score, lovely use of Iceland at the start to show the alien planet. I think the acting's lacking in this. It's like Michael Fassbender turns up and he's kind of got the message, and he gives a great performance. Totally gets it. It's weird, like Fassbender really in a peak point at this point. He's kind of seems to have gone away at the moment. A really tremendous actor, but it's like he's kind of lost interest in the thing. I don't know. Come back, Fassbender. Yeah, so, and then the rest of the actors, you know, they're just not really nailing the characters. I think Noomi Rapace, kind of, an actress I really like, kind of struggles a bit. Charlize Theron kind of does a good job of being the cold bitch, but, you know, she's Charlize Theron, she should be given more. Logan Marshall Green, the love interest, and alright, Idris, not kind of just playing. I think the problem with this is it's kind of copying the Alien thing, where you've got the team, but it just has none of the nuance that those actors and that script brought to it. But there's numerous visuals I like with this, and you know, it's that thing, it's like my mate said, Ridley Scott's a great world builder, and for that reason, it's, you know, that's why I've put this in there. It really should watch it with Alien Covenant. I mean, that's got its problems as well, although it kind of explains this more. And again, Fassbender turns up as well. There's a kind of really homoerotic bit where it's talking about playing the flute and blowing, which is quite interesting. Yeah, they probably shouldn't have made them. Whether they'll do another Alien one, I don't know. Yeah, the whole Alien series, ever since Aliens, has just become problematic. But this is my 7th, 8th choice, and I'd say watch it with Alien Covenant. and then you get the whole picture and the visuals and so on. Okay, my number 7 choice. This is actually, I think, his biggest box office hit, and I think it kind of came not out of nowhere, but I think it was quite surprising. It's a great mixture of drama, but it's got a lot of comedy. It's The Martian. It made $630 million. I mean, even with inflation of grosses like films like Alien, about Gladiator, if you release it now, that would gross more than this. But other than that, this was a huge hit. Very good. Matt Damon, Jessica Chastain, Kristen Wiig is very funny. Jeff Daniels, Sean Bean's in it. Really good. And basically the plot is, he has to get off survive on Mars and do the rescue attempt. Tense climax, cinematography, editing, effects. Again, Scott just ticking all the boxes. The space scenes are good. It's technically flawless film. He doesn't do rubbish effect shots or something like that. Ridley Scott's one of those people. If they don't look right, it's not going to make the cut, as it were. He's one of the visual masters with his lighting design and so on. Okay, my number 6 choice is a film that's quite kind of cold, but strange in so much. I think you could say it's quite Kubrickish in a way, and it's his debut film, The Duelist. So this just kind of explores a duel between two French officers over I forget which war it is. Let me just remember that. It's based on a Joseph Conrad short story. I can't see what war it's saying. Sorry. Find it out. Apologies. But what's interesting about this is it shows his art background. So he uses classic kind of paintings as like compositional influence. He's got a photographic memory, Scott, when he sees something, it imprints. So he brings out his painting in this. And it's kind of, each kind of scene's kind of played out like a different vignette. There's not much kind of narrative in this. It is this kind of series of duels with connecting bits. The photography's really good. And it's kind of very British looking. That's quite interesting. Once he goes to Hollywood, his films look kind of more Hollywood and international, but this looks very British. You can kind of see his advert aesthetic in this. It's in the Napoleonic War. Sorry, I just caught Napoleon there. Okay, so it was a flop at the time, but it showed he knew how to lend stuff, so that led him to something better. My number 5 choice, again, this might be a surprise to people, but I think this was a difficult job. I remember going to see it at Pritchard's. I found it very entertaining. It's got great photography by John Matheson, who did Gladiator. It will never equal the film that came before, or Manhunter in some ways, but I still think it's an enjoyable film for all its flaws, and it's Hannibal. A lot of fun to see Anthony Hopkins back. Julianne Ann Moore just pretty good with a thankless task of replacing Jodie Foster. I think, there's criticism of that, but you've got to give Julianne Moore credit. She does a decent job. Ray Liotta's great in this, and unrecognisable Gary Oldman. I think he went uncasted in the list, so it became a shocker. You're like, that's Gary Oldman. Again, another big hit. At this point in Scott, he's come off Gladiator and he's had a huge hit with that, but prior to that, he was having a lean spell. G.I. Jane, White Squall, Conquest of Paradise, the 90s after Thelma and Louise were not good for him. Gladiator got him back, and this grossed $350 million. You'd be looking at $600-700 million now. So he's really really showing success here. He also collaborates with Hans Zimmer here again with the composition. I like the end. I like a lot of the dark humour in this. I like the plot. It avoids the thing where Clarice and Dr. Letter have shenanigans, which I think's right. The reason Jodie Foster didn't do the film, she felt betrayed the character. Maybe she'd have felt different if she knew they were going to do this. But anyway, that's my number 5 choice. My number 4 choice is probably one of his most visceral, most directed films. And he got an Oscar nomination for this. My only criticism is you can see he's kind of watched Private Ryan, I think, and taken a leaf out of Spielberg. But it's a Black Hawk Down. This is about a famous battle in Civil War in Somalia. Again, Spectre of Scalia, Hans Zimmer coming back as a guy called Slavomir Idziak. I can't pronounce that, apologies. Doing the cinematography. He does a great job. It's using a lot of desaturated palette and filters. It's tense. It's very intense. I would say this is one of the most intense war films ever made. The cast do pretty good. you cast good people, so because there's not really much character development. You got Ewan McGregor, Josh Hartnett, Tom Sizemore, $110 million budget, $173 million gross. So just about kind of making its money back, but it did get a lot of. It got an Oscar nomination for its direction and a lot of tech credits. It's a technical tour de force. And it shows that he can stage back. I think war films are something where the big directors feel they have to, at some point they're going to do one, aren't they? And he shows that he was capable of that. Next film, number 3. This is his big comeback, I would argue. It's one of the most beloved films of the last 20 years, and it's, of course, Gladiator. I remember seeing a poster for this, and sometimes you just get a feeling about a film. I just saw Russell Crowe, an actor I really liked at the time of Cinema in LA, Confidential, Quick and the Dead, Romper Stomper. I thought, he's really good. And he'd had an Oscar nomination for The Insider, the Michael Mann film the year before. You saw the poster and you just thought, actually, the time's ripe for a Roman epic. And I must confess, it was a bit like, Ridley Scott, he hasn't done anything great for a while. But John Matheson, Petra Scalia back. Great tech credits on this. My only criticism is some of the CGI's dated. CGI wasn't always great at the time. The bits with the Colosseum and Rome, it had that weird lighting where people are almost grey and shadowed a bit to kind of match the shots. But it was the best they could do at the time. But it is epic, 155 minutes. Pretty cool opening battle. It kind of uses that streaking technique of Private Ryan and Full Metal Jacket on the lens, on the cinematography. I've maybe preferred something a little more visceral, and I think the climax, although it's effective, it might have been better with a big battle. But great music themes, nice dramatic story using a kind of Braveheart, thing where the hero's wife is murdered. Joaquin Phoenix, I May Not Merciful is very good. Derek Jacobi, John Huston, Connie Nielsen, Oliver Reed, fantastic. If you ever get a chance to go to Malta where it was filmed, there's a little English-style pub in Malta, and it's where Oliver Reed had his last pint. And there's pictures of him on the wall and newspaper articles about his last session. He had about 12 pints and loads of whiskies. Awesome. Okay, so that's Gladiator number 3. Number 2, so, okay, let's be serious. It can be one of 2 films, can't it? I think in some ways this might be the better film, but I'm going for Blade Runner. My top 10 sci-fi, I've already spoken about this in quite some depth, but which cut you watch, I recommend you go with the final cut. So the final cut basically takes the work print, which was the director's cut, tweaks that, and then adds a couple of good bits of CGI. There's a bit with Zora where she's killed, which he improves so she doesn't look like a stunt double. And there's the final bit where he lets the dove off, and it's not like just nice sky. And that's, it's actually an example where tinkering works. Amazingly influential film. The pacing's slow, but it's got permanent standard visuals and effects. Like 2001, like all great science fiction films, it hasn't dated. Yeah, there's a few things like Atari and Invista. Yeah, we've already reached that date, but it's just got a look and a feel that's going to influence filmmakers for years to come. Harrison Ford, one of his best kind of Harrison Ford franchise films. Edward James Olmos is great. Rutger Hauer, truly iconic. Superb as Roy Batty. Daryl Hannah as Priz, amazing. What's his name? Forget the name of the actor. The guy fails the test. Anyway, I've forgotten. You know what I mean. One of the great science fiction films, 40 years old this year. Amazing. Okay, so just recapping, 10 was Black Rain. Cheesy cop film, but worth checking out. The Counselor, interesting, flawed, but I like it. Prometheus, see that with Alien Covenant. Could have been a lot better, but it looks great. Then you got Martian, very entertaining, great effects. Duelist, beautifully photographed. Hannibal, slick entertainment, no Silence of the Lambs, but I like it. Black Hawk Down, great technical tour de force. Gladiator, the modern Roman epic, still the best one in recent times. Blade Runner. So my number 1 choice is Alien, his second film. I'm a big Alien fan. I love aliens as well. Unfortunately, the Alien universe has gone off various places and never quite got it back. This basically just the classic thing. It keeps the alien out of view. It's like Jaws in that respect. It's like a horror film, a haunted house film in space. But I think what the benefits of this, aside from the great sound, the great scoring, is the casting. He casts it really well, and that fleshes out the characters. We don't find out much about Yaphet Kotto or Harry Dean Stanton's characters, but they're such good actors that we care what happens to them. Same for Veronica Cartwright. Same for Tom Skerritt, John Hurt, Ian Holm, excellent, and of course the amazing Sigourney Weaver in one of the great performances, a great breakout performance, and she'll do even better in Aliens. Massive hit, massive influence, amazing Geiger design of the alien, that anthropomorphic thing with the bones that he did, cyber, mixing his cybernetics, I suppose you'd say. It's a film I don't tire of watching. You can just kind of sit down, and it's got a permanent standard. Again, the model of the effects work is all first class, and I think that's an odd bit aside. I think that's where it's best to leave it. Ridley Scott is technically one of the most gifted filmmakers ever. He has a standard. He's got a photographic standard. He's got whatever techniques he's using. It always maintains a standard. Very rarely slips below. It very rarely, not always gets it right with the films, but they'll always look and have sequences like White Squall, for instance. Matchstick Men, another film I didn't mention before, with beautiful photography and good performances, much better with actors than he gets credit for. He will always have something in the film, so even if it's not totally working, it won't be long until he does a film where we're like, fucking Ridley Scott. Cheers, thanks very much. Remember to share and subscribe if you enjoy these. Thank you.